Pick a different bracelet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan, and I am 7 Degrees of Wisdom. I am an intuitive professional tarot reader, past life regressionist, practicing occultist, spiritual and paranormal consultant, and I teach classes on occult subjects. And today we have Kesha with Textarot back with us. Kesha, tell everyone where they can find you and what services that you provide.
Sure. On Instagram, you can find me at Textarot for daily tarot readings. Um, you can find me also at Wealth of Myself for daily quotes of inspiration and motivation. You can find me on YouTube at KT And yeah, I think I'm on Facebook, but I don't really look at it, so I won't recommend that to the best channel to find me.
Yeah. My Instagram is my main. I don't prefer Facebook, but I've gotten a lot of clientele from Facebook. So, yeah, you guys can find me on TikTok, my YouTube channel, obviously, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm been working in the background on a lot of different projects, and there's going to be some big changes that are coming up in my life and how I approach things and the services that I offer. Um, I'm taking a deep dive into Chaldean numerology here lately, and I've been really interested in the I Ching. So eventually, I'm going to start offering that service wise at some point.
Mhm.
I found that really interesting rabbit hole to go down is the Chaldean numerology. So, but basically, if you guys want to get a hold of me or her about our services, just hit us up on um, our social media accounts, and we can set something up for all of you guys. But
When you mention that, it reminds me I'm on Facebook at those same handles, Textero and Wealth of Myself. So that's another way to reach me as well. And it's interesting you bring up the I Ching. I read that every or do readings through it every so often. Usually like
Mhm.
major pivot points,
Yeah.
rather than the day to day. And I just put up a reading yesterday. Um, so that's such a fascinating um, system of divination. I had originally you come through it through the Chinese and for us English translations,
Mhm.
and I was lucky enough to find a book from Joseph Murphy, The Secrets of the I Ching, and he ties it into biblical verses,
Oh, cool.
which is a totally different way of seeing it. Because like, so the original, like, the Baines translation, I think most people, Wilhelm Baines, that most people start out with, it's very in the Chinese poetic tradition, very flowery, and a lot of symbolism
Mhm.
that is great for interpretation, because depending on your lens, it can read differently, you know.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it can also, if you're looking for clarity and action steps, that can be a little confusing, because your mind can go in different directions, and then you find yourself a little more confused because there's multiple interpretations.
Mhm.
I later came across a translation by The Complete I Ching by Huang,
Mm.
and it has, what I like about it, it's more like an encyclopedia volume. It's really thick. Um, but it goes into why the particular symbolism, as well as giving like a more traditional translation, and then a more modern and accessible translation, and
Mhm.
gives you a lot more, because there's so many more words to digest. It gives you more to work with, and to fine tune your understanding. And so I find between that book and Joseph Murphy, because he builds on it through the Bible verses, he will also talk about it through the lens of divine intelligence and divine love, which in the realm of metaphysics that I work in, that's more closely aligned in language and expression of what I'm used
Mhm.
to from a background of Catherine Ponder and Neville Goddard, and so on. So it's interesting, the different translations will give you different points of access,
Mhm.
and how to receive the information, and of course how to make use of it from there.
Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. I'm really thinking about getting into it, and I think now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Keisha and I were talking about the energy that's still kind of present, that's been going on. Last time if you guys haven't seen the other two videos that we've posted, make sure you check those out because we basically been talking about all things spiritual, and we're throwing tarot into it and relating it to tarot since we're both tarot readers. But we work with energy. And so there's a collective energy that, will show up consistently in our readings with clients. And then there's our own personal energy. And we were talking about how the energy feels. Um, Last time we were talking about how it felt like a void and directionless. I'm still feeling this. And I'm seeing it play out with all of the clients that I've been reading for. There's this energy that just it feels like old solutions to problems and old ways of doing things just aren't working anymore, no matter how hard you try. And it's just this overall feeling of we need big change to happen, but this change that's happening can't be done in the old ways that we used to do it before. I don't know if you're feeling this or you're picking up on this. I've been in this mode for quite some time now. Um, and I've been trying to get myself out of it and help my clients get through it and try to figure it out. It feels like everything's wired up and ready to go, but the switch hasn't been flipped. It's like,
Yep.
self care and self love have been predominant themes that have been coming up for me, setting healthy boundaries with people, which I've had to do recently. Um, and it's a really important thing to step into your power and be able to shed the things that are no longer serving you, people that are draining your energy, that are don't respect your boundaries, things like that. That's been the reoccurring theme for me lately that I've had to really dive into. And I think I realized that my energy was being drained from me in a lot of different ways that I wasn't very conscious of.
Hmm.
And once I figured that out, I started cleaning house and figuring out, okay, how do I need to go about this in a healthy way to preserve my energy? Because I feel like there's something big going to happen, and I have to have my energy intact for that
Mm-hmm.
when this gets ready to play out. I don't know if you've been kind of feeling that way, but it just feels like an overall general energy for me, and it's been showing up in a lot of client readings. And I
Yeah.
apologize for the echoes, guys, if you can hear me echoing.
I I do feel like we've moved on from the sense of the void where it was like what we talked about before. We couldn't get our footing,
Mhm,
and the answer to that was to go within and trust yourself. And when you talk about the old systems and the old ways of doing things no longer working,
mhm.
um, the old structure has to fall away. I don't know about you, but for a while there, I was getting the tower card fairly
Yeah,
regularly.
yes, I was.
Yeah. And so just further indication that, old paradigms were falling, and old methods of thinking and doing weren't going to work. Um, I definitely feel like we've moved beyond the sense of void into, you know, the sun is coming up over the horizon. We're still on the path. We're out of the brambles and the hard, we're out of the hard jungle. We've gone through the brush, and we're coming into a clearing. The arches and the gate to the promised land are just above us or just ahead, but the path has gotten easier to walk, and we're walking with more light around us.
Mhm.
But there's still steps to be taken. So we're not there yet. The card that makes me think of that the most, um, I just had it in a reading recently. I'll pull it up while I'm talking.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like we're close. We're on the verge of
Mhm.
this thing happening, but
Mhm.
it's not there yet.
Mhm.
And you know, the work to be done in the meantime is, and I did a video about this because I was feeling it so strongly, and it was about active patience, how to practice actively being patient.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the idea that we know it's coming, we know we're almost there. It's certainly not the time to just sit back and twiddle your thumbs and then wait for it to be presented to us. We still need to keep moving towards it.
Right.
And we don't necessarily let our gas off the let our foot off the gas, but the action to take right now is certainly more inward. It's This period is allowing us the opportunity to grow our trust and faith, which is an area where I think, well, it's infinitely explorable. Like, we have it to a degree, and
Mm-hmm.
then the further along we get, we enjoy deeper initiations. Um, and that's, I think, where I'm feeling we are now. Um, so where is it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Ace of Pentacles
Yes.
was the image I had in mind. And actually, yeah, that was the reading where it was like, okay, so with the Ace of Pentacles, you got the hand in the foreground presenting you it's a massive opportunity, right? Because it's in the
Mm-hmm.
foreground, it's going to be closer to you, it's bigger. Um, and then underneath that is that there's a path, and you've got the arbor and the arch, and it's like, if we're right here and it's being presented to us and it's right in front of us, we're about ready to receive. It hasn't come into us yet, but it's very close.
Mm-hmm.
But even once we receive it, there's still a bit of a pathway that we have to walk before we enter what I'll just call our promised land. Um, and I think because we can see it, we sense it, right? So we can
Mm-hmm.
see it, but we're not quite there yet, and it feels so close. It's weighted, and that's why it feels like it's impending. Um, you know, it's just a matter of staying focused, um,
Mm-hmm.
and trusting more deeply, and being, um, I mean, 1,000% in on your yes.
Yeah.
Um, in the since we've last spoken, um, you know, me personally, I was in a position where I had accepted a new opportunity, um, in the anticipation and excitement that, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to solve XYZ problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took the steps to get myself ready to step into it. That was, 2 months ago. Last month, I actually stepped into it. Um, had the first couple of meetings, whatever. And it was like, no, 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 no. This is, this is the past dressed up in new clothing. Because it was presented a little bit differently, it felt different, and I didn't immediately recognize it. But as soon as I made the connection that, oh no, this is too much like the past, this is what I've
Yeah.
just moved away from, it was very easy to say thank you, but no. And I turned away from that. And that had been the only thing on my plate to, like, sustain me, financially, as I moved through this transition. And it was like, well, if you say no to that, what now? And I'm like, no, no, the question isn't what now, like, what do I do now? It's what's next. Like, in a
Exactly.
joyous sense of, hey, because I passed that test of recognizing that what I initially was presented isn't right for me. Because, when you say yes to something bigger, you're going to first be shown glimpses of it, and it'll seem like it's right here, but then it'll go away, or the glimpse will fade, and it's like, oh, what happened? Well, that's to kind of key your mind and your energy to start to orient towards that direction, and to let you know, hey, it is possible, because I felt it once. I stepped into it once.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you decide, okay, I'm going to say yes to it, the universe is like, oh yeah, you sure? Because a lot of people say they want their dreams. A lot of people say they want to be this and do this, but they fall short of the mark. What are you going to do? And so you get provided these tests. And even since then, I've had to decline the opportunity 2 or 3 times since I firmly told them, no, I'm not doing this. And it was
Mm-hmm.
always, but you'd be making so much money, and I'm like, no, like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I made my decision. And so that closed the door on that,
Mm-hmm.
with respect to money. And so, okay, so we move on from money. Now we look at relationships. And one of the energies that we've been talking about, with this Cancer transit, especially coming up on, I cannot give you the astrological specifics, but whatever's happening around June 15th, plus or minus, right?
Yes.
Relationships being highlighted with this Cancerian, emotional energy, and the possibility that exes will be thinking about you and coming back into the picture. And of course, I'm a woman and I got I got my list of exes, and one or two in particular, I'm like, I wonder if. And because I've been single for so long and I've been wanting to be in a relationship, there was this moment where I thought, oh, well, if they do come back in, if I get that knock on the door, what am I going to do? Am I going to say yes? And it was like, well, it has been a while. Well. And then I was like, no, because just like with the job that didn't quite fit, or that was going to be a repeat of the past, to go back to an ex when you already know what that's about, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like you already know. And then I was like, and it wasn't even about that so much as, well, because it would feel good in the moment, but then the next day I would feel crappy, right? And it was like, my conversation then to the universe would be, why did you do that to me? Why did you bring me somebody that is not what I've been asking for in terms of a substantial and substantive relationship? And it was like, and the answer, like, I'm having this conversation with spirit, and it's like, well, because my not only would it be my question of why would you bring me something insubstantial, it was, do you not value me enough to present me what I'm asking for? Like, you're just giving me these crumbs and, the shadows of a relationship. And then it was like, well, is it about what I'm giving you, or is it about what you're willing to accept? Was the answer I got from spirit. And at that point I was like, well, wait a minute. The power then comes back to me, because it's not about, oh, the universe presents this, I have to choose. It's about, I'm choosing now. Don't bring me that nonsense. Don't even allow that to be a possibility. I'm saying no now before it even comes up. And that's when I realized, oh, I passed the test.
Yes.
Like, what? So I think, my life is mine, yes, but it's also an example of what other things are going on. So there's some things I think could be applicable, especially as we're all going to be under the same stars, right?
Yeah.
So just know that these things that you've been asking for, because you've been asking for them for so long, and because they are so central and important to who you are and where you want to be, you need to be absolutely clear and sure about those choices.
Yes.
And anything that does not look like that is an absolute no. Not a maybe, I'll do this in the meantime. And I think that's been the lesson, because in the past, right, the practical wisdom would be, say for instance, if you're transitioning between jobs, you got fired from one or you quit one because you couldn't do it anymore. The old way of thinking would be, take this little job as a transition. Go work retail, go take this little office job that is not of interest but will pay the bills, because that's going to give you some income while you're working out what you want next. And in the past that would have worked. But right now the energy and the movement is such that it's more about, if you have recognized that whatever in the past is not working for you, it's time to say no. That's what we've had, the last 3-4 months of, if you've been in your work, you've been shown what does not work for you, and you've been given ample opportunity to put it to the side.
Right.
And then that would have left you in the space of, well, I don't know what's next, because everything else that's been presented to you looks too much like the past. And you just feel like, I've grown too fucking much to say yes to that.
Exactly.
Right? And so you already know it's not going to fit. So you've said no to those interim possibilities. So then you're left with, well, then what? And it's like, that's where you have to go within. You do the processes that I talked about in my video. You stay active, you drink your water, you pay attention to your diet. First one on my list is always declutter, whether it's people or things,
Yep.
Because you're making space for the new. Um, those are the things that, like you mentioned, getting you ready so that when the big thing does come, you're not bothered by this minutia that you've been holding on to. One of the big things that I mentioned in my video and that I tell everybody, especially right now, all those little, like your to-do lists, your little tasks, the things that you think about, but like, oh, I can do those later. It's not that big a deal. Do them now. We need to be in the energy of completion, especially since we're looking to manifest whatever or demonstrate these things that are so much bigger. Being in the energy of completion, even on the small things, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. He who is faithful with the little is also faithful with much. If we're in that energy of completion over the small things, then we're setting ourselves up to be in the energy of completion for the things that are bigger. And why that's important is because when you do walk through those, through the gates and you get into the promised land and the demonstration is actually here and you are at that moment, do you really want to be hampered by these things you've been thinking about for the last year that you haven't done, that were very easy, that you could, and then you think, oh man, I could have been doing this 2 weeks ago before all this other stuff happened. You don't want to have prayed and waited so patiently for this master demonstration to show up, have it show up, and then be retarded in your forward motion by shit you could have taken care of a month ago.
Right.
And I think that's just maturity. And I don't mean maturity like age. It's more like the wisdom of experience. And we talk about we're doing things a little bit differently. We're having to do things differently than the past because we've been initiated to a higher level. And higher level means there's no time for that nonsense. There's no time for you to know that there's work to be done and not do it. That time is over because there was filler in the past. I don't think what's coming next has room for filler.
No.
Which means that it's more intense and more vibrant. It's like we've turned up the saturation dial. And so the grays have disappeared and everything is much more vibrant in its color and presentation. And in order for us to meet it at that moment, we can't be hampered by any of the gray matter of the things that could have been done, but we're still, those little details.
Right. And I mentor a few people, and this theme has been coming up a lot. Being tested.
Yep.
Not settling, where we used to settle before and just go on to the next thing because you're worried about your finances or worried about, this working out a certain way. This actually played out last week with a couple of the people that I mentor. And one of them, she's a dear friend. She got laid off from one job, had interviewed for a few places. There was one that she really wanted to get. And I ended up doing a reading for her. And I was like, she got hired on at a place she didn't really want to work.
Yes.
And I was like, why do you think you have to take this even though you really don't want to do it? And she looked at me like, what? And I was like, well, the time of settling for things that are going to drain your energy, drain your time, affect you emotionally, and then eventually physically, because you're not enjoying what you're doing and it wasn't your first choice, take out the middleman. And I think that's what's going on collectively. Those are on a spiritual journey and you're waking up and things are just different now. And I think things have felt different for quite some time now. It started with COVID, and then from there it just completely changed. I think our whole perspective and view on the world and how things are working have just completely been blown out of the water. And now we're sitting here trying to regroup, figure out what we want to do. And a lot of us, like you said, we're setting healthy boundaries, taking care of our energetic field, and going, and we're being tested. We keep having these tests being presented to us in really deep, profound ways that hit on our emotional, spiritual maturity. And so I think that's what's leading to the disconnect on, okay, well, where do I go from here? Because the old ways aren't working. So not settling is a huge thing, is a huge lesson that I've been working with my clients on, as well as practicing what I preach myself. And there's, been some changes go on, things I need to change. I need to change my complete method of doing things, the way that I do things. It's time for me to let go and move on and go down different avenues, because it just feels like, the way that I'm doing things now, and a lot of my clients, like you said, take that job in the middle of this just so that you'll be financially secure and all this, but is it worth it? And I think that's a big theme now, is like, is it worth it? If it's not worth it anymore, if it's not worth your time or energy, don't do it. Because there's something that's going to be way bigger that's around the corner. There's some things that I've been working on manifesting. I have this really grand idea, this thing that I want to accomplish. And I sat down and I sat with it. I was like, what do I need to do? What changes do I need to make to accomplish this particular goal that would be my magnum opus? It would be exactly what I wanted when I started doing this. And I figured out over time that I need to not be settling for things that I don't want to put my time and energy into, especially emotionally. And it was funny how I was feeling this exact same way, and then my clients are also feeling this as well. And that leads to, okay, whatever's going on inside of you, you're going to manifest out in your physical reality. And everyone starts becoming a mirror for you. This happens when you start becoming more enlightened and you're doing work on yourself. You will start to see your internal state being manifested out in your physical reality, and people, places, and things are a mirror for what's going on. And so you're constantly being tested. How are you going to handle this time? Are you going to settle? Which direction are you going to go in? And I think that's, like, I just kind of realized here talking about this is like, that's what's wrong. That's why there's that little piece inside of me that I can't quite put my finger on, that just doesn't feel right. I think that's what that is. It's like, I need to figure out what it is that I need to get rid of, what it is I need to accept and integrate, and not settling anymore, because I know I've been down this road a million times and I'm going to end up in the same spot eventually, of not wanting to be here, not wanting to do this, not wanting to work with these certain people. It's just this reoccurring thing that keeps coming up as a theme for me, and it's playing out in my consultations.
Well, that's going to be a reflection too of alignment. So with the energy of healing, you're going to, so the dominant energy, people are going to entrain to the dominant energy. You're already in this field and you're doing this for you, and that's going to be the energy that you're walking in. The people that need help are also going to be on a similar path, maybe not as far along as you are. And so when they come to you for guidance and wisdom, it's because you're both aligned in that you're moving towards similar goals in similar ways. And because yours is the more dominant energy, they're coming to you. So when you look at it, you're like, all of my clients are doing the same thing. But that's because your energy is so big and you set yourself up to be a teacher, so that when your light shines, other people who are trying to find their way, they look up, they see that light, and they're like, oh, let's go to her. She can help. And so the people that you're seeing are going to be facing similar issues because, that they're recognizing your light. On the other side of that, I think with me, it's interesting because Well,
Hmm.
I haven't thought this out, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to say this out loud to the public. Um, Interesting. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, and then I'll figure it out. You
Okay.
know. Um, so my energy is massive.
Hmm.
I know this, and I am not seeing clients at the moment,
Hmm.
and I'm having similar conversations with other practitioners,
Yeah.
um, which is fine because I like being the healer for healers or the teacher for teachers
Hmm.
because we still need that, right?
Yes.
Um, and I think a lot of teachers are afraid to be that because they look at someone else and think, oh, I'm not as good as them, so I couldn't be a teacher for them. But I look at it as if I have this body of knowledge and I'm willing to share with whomever is interested. And it happens to be that most of my people are teachers,
Hmm.
um, or other healers. But in that exchange, it's not a client um, professional relationship. It's more like we're equals. I'm just sharing
Hmm.
with you what I know and experience.
Yeah.
So while there is exchange, there's not a financial exchange. And that's a little bit different because part of what I initially wanted when I came into this was that I made my living through this work and through these types of interactions.
Yeah.
But next to that, I also wanted an unconventional existence in that I did not want my income tied to my work. My work is my work, and money is money. And they are separate things that don't have to be joined and linked together, which is a little bit, that's a little bit out there, but I'm seeing how that's working. Like,
Hmm.
actually, in this moment, it's working because I have money from different points of the universe and I'm doing my work separate. But because it's an interesting idea and I'm not totally practiced in it yet, there's still that one foot in one and one foot in the other. So when I look at like, oh, I don't have as many clients as someone else, there must be something wrong with me. Or I look at, say, the number of subscribers to my Instagram account, which I happened to look at last night,
Hmm.
and a number of followers rather. And I'm like, that number's been unchanged for a really long time. That must be there's something wrong with me. And I'm like,
Hmm.
no, because I love, oh my God, the depth to which I love my Instagram account. Like when I look at my profile and I see all of my posts,
Hmm.
that riot of color thrills my soul in a way that I cannot describe. And then for me to look at each individual post and to see what's written, I'm like, God damn, like that shit's cool.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I wouldn't, who cares if other people get it? I am loving it too much. And just because other people haven't caught on yet does not mean that I should change it or give it up. It's
Right.
I love it too much. I'm going to continue to do it. Others will follow along as they will. And I had to step back and go back to this original maxim of you are not fed by your fruits. You know, you are not, the rose does not grow to be a rose because I fertilize it with roses. The rose becomes the rose because I've given it light, water, air, and soil.
Hmm.
And so I'm keeping on working my soil. I'm giving it the brightest light I possibly can. I'm giving it the cleanest water and the purest air. And the results may not be the higher follower count. The results will be my face and my
Right.
smile. And that
Right.
it's a smile from my toes in the infinite because I am truly happy from the inside out. Like that to me is how I wanted to structure my life. And like, damn, I'm living it. Like that that is the result. But it doesn't look like either what I had expected it would look like or what anyone else would expect it to look like. But I can tell you, like, I've gotten the most comments lately about, wow, you seem really happy. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, wait a minute. That's it. And because I'm living and emanating that vibration, the thing that's being held by the Ace of Pentacles has that much, it's going to be that much bigger because obviously I can hold more because I am bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And the channel for receiving is wider because my vibration is bigger, brighter, more expansive, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this is how we get there. So that's why I'm telling people, when you say yes to your yes, lean all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of outcome, lean all the way in. Go by how you feel, because that's the barometer or the indicator of where you are in the process. And anything that you can do to bring yourself back around to being an absolute joy and acknowledgement that it is happening. This is it. It is happening. Your mind does not recognize the difference between what you are imagining and seeing in your mind's eye versus what you are experiencing in your physical reality. And so when we talk about the void or this time of transition, it's like we're glitching in and out of one and the other. And if we do it enough, where we're giving so much energy to the vision of the mind's eye, then our reality will become that because there's no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we had for the last couple of months people talking about, I don't know about you, but social media was full of quantum jumping, quantum leaping.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the jump. That is how you're making the leap. That's how you know that it's happening. And I've been seeing that glitchiness happen. It's like the pixels for this life haven't fully formed and stayed solid yet, but I'm seeing the pixels from over here fall away, and I'm seeing more show up over here. And as long as I keep focused over here, then that picture is going to coalesce, and that will be the reality of what I look at, no matter where I look.
Right. Right. Yeah, I 110% agree. Um, Speaking of trendy type things that have been popping up, for me, I've been doing a lot of shadow work and integration work and trying to get through all this energy that I've been feeling and dealing with, and lessons and change that's needed and tower moments. Um, the divine feminine has been something that has popped up a lot on, it's in social media, but before it's funny because usually I will pick up on the trends before they happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I started seeing it everywhere after, a friend and I were talking about Mary Magdalene, that she received information from her, doing a meditation, and then we started going down the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and we were reading all of that stuff, and then it kept popping up everywhere. I was seeing Divine Feminine. It was showing up in all the astrological chart readings and all of that stuff. And I think that when you start doing this work on yourself, you realize that there are parts of yourself that you have been neglecting, put on the back burner, all of those things. And when I say divine masculine and feminine, it's more of an archetype, not to really be taken as literally as it sounds.
Right.
But I had realized that I had fallen off from embracing my divine feminine, creative, receptive, loving energy, that had kind of gotten away from that, and I was more in a masculine type energy.
Mm-hmm.
And started realizing, okay, well, I need to incorporate more divine feminine because that's going to bring more love into the situation. I did a cacao ceremony last week with a group of dear friends. And for the first time in a long time, I had felt gratitude. And uh, because of all this energy and all the big changes that I've been through, and I'm seeing it play out in all the clients, is that lack of coming from a heart space and embracing the love, which means boundaries, self-care, self-love, self-worthiness, all of those things that I had been lacking for so long had all of a sudden reappeared into my reality. And I was like, okay, well, this is something that I need to work on because I've been feeling a lack of that type of energy for a while now. And it's a combination of different things that have been happening. But I think that once you get past a certain point, you start to realize the things that you're lacking that you may have not seen or weren't in your conscious awareness that need to be addressed. And so when this happens, I'm talking about this because I think we need more feminine energy right now, collectively and
Oh yeah,
individually.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I mean,
it would
that's
solve a massive amount of problems that's
it
going on
would. I
right
mean,
now.
I think when we talk about this shift, think about the patriarchal society that we live in and how everything is geared towards action and movement and hustle culture. Those are all, and domination, colonization, like all of those things are, part of that male archetype.
Mm-hmm.
And we're tired of it. It
Yes.
hasn't, it's built us to a degree. And now it's like when you're a bodybuilder and you start taking steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Initially it's great, right? Because you're developing muscle and you're seeing that improvement and you think, okay, so I'm going to do more, I'm going to take it longer. And then you get to a point where your body is simply beyond ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And that's where that masculine energy has taken us. We've gotten to a point where society does not work because it's gotten freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is to step back into and allow the feminine to express.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard transition,
Yes.
And it's, but we in our society, because we have to be so focused on hyper focused on action and results quickly, the idea that we would be able to relax and flow into the thing is so mind-boggling, earth-shattering, as it would need to be earth-shattering for a reason. And so if you think about the images of that tower card, it's the male energy that's falling off.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might be wearing robes or something, but it's a male energy that's falling out of the tower and all scared.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun that's in the background, like the possibility of growth that's coming, that's in the background of that card, and what happens after, that's all feminine aspect. And so it's hard not to see where we are in this moment in time. The old structures of that dominant male energy falling away as we move into something that is more creative, more trusting, more receptive and allowing, and more feminine.
Yes.
And not feminine, not male feminine in the gender sense, but in the archetypal sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's, when we've talked so much about trust, and how long it's taken, so it's been a couple months, right, that we've been 2.5, 3 months roughly that we've been working on this, if not a little bit longer, but deeply ensconced in it. It's all about refining that trust and allowing the feminine to come through and working with the energies in a much softer way, as opposed to I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to, trying to set up these pins and knock everything down. It's more like, I'm going to plant this seed and let that grow.
Yeah.
And, that's a hard transition, yes, but it's so necessary. And I have to imagine very welcome. Like I know it sounds good, like the
Mm-hmm.
idea that I could relax into this next space, that I can plant the seeds and allow them to grow sounds great. But on the practical, it's like that's scary because I've been conditioned to do and to act for so long.
Mm-hmm.
How is it even possible to relax at this point? And relaxation can be its own work. And if that's the thought you need to have in order to transition you there, then start where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think coming from the heart space is a really hard transition when we've had that beat into us and conditioned into thinking, like you said, we have to do this to get these results
Yeah.
or work
And
really
we've been
hard. And
derided as
yeah,
well. Like, think about, if you're in a traditional office setting, even the women are going to make fun of you if you talk about, well, how'd you get that idea? Oh, I followed my intuition. You did what? You
yeah.
didn't run tests. You didn't get data analysis. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that can't be trusted. But I'm right. I'm
Yeah,
right. Let somebody else go run the numbers. I'm still right.
right.
And if running the numbers makes you feel more comfortable, okay, but I'm still right. And I
Yeah.
think that's that feels like a better explanation of where we are than anything else somebody might posit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, realized that over the last couple of weeks that, I'm a go-getter, I'm a doer.
Sure.
I'm an overachiever, overworker, and I got knocked down a few notches because I was thinking, okay, this way is not working anymore.
Well, how
And
many people have gotten sick and had to take
mm-hmm.
take time off? Like, you know, without choice, your body has said stop. You
Right.
must relax. You must rest.
Yep.
And I think that's how we don't know another way. Like, we don't know how to actively decide, you know what, I need to back off here for a moment. I need to
Yeah.
take a break. And it's more than, it's not the same as I'm going to schedule a vacation, because vacations are often loaded up with as much activity as our daily work. When we come back, we need a vacation.
Right.
But more that sense of like, I need to full on rest, like do nothing. And that's really hard.
Yep.
And so
That's
one of the
hard for
ways
me.
that our consciousness allows that to happen is through illness.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in the way that, if we're going to move into the next phase of our existence, we often choose death because, or, illness through death, or
Mm-hmm.
death through illness, because we don't know any other way. We haven't seen enough people or had enough people talk about the possibility of what simple ascension would look like. Yes, we know of Annalise Guerin, but we don't think that that's possible for all of us, that we could simply walk into the next existence, which is pretty crazy when you consider the number of quote unquote Christians. Did they not read where Enoch and Elijah went on to walk with God? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was no death, just, oh, there's Elijah and God, they're up, they're walking, like they just kept on walking. Like, we
Yeah.
don't see that as a possibility, even though we've read about it. We think that's something that's out there and over there and that other, not that it could be ours, even though we've had glimpses of it. We've had people do it. It's not entirely new. Some of
Mm-hmm.
us feel it already, but we haven't fully accepted it as a possibility. And I think where we are now, it's like we're having that moment where we can ponder and choose differently,
Mm-hmm.
and thereby act differently to
Yeah.
see this new world that we're creating for ourselves.
Yeah. Taking a step back. Um, that's been really hard for me to do. That's something that I've always struggled with was self-care, resting, setting boundaries. And I think, with all this intense energy that I've been through the last couple of months, it was like I started to realize if I don't do it, this is going to get worse.
Well, yeah.
And
And
it's
by
going
you
to,
doing it,
you
it
know,
also, it's going to, if you don't do it, it will be worse for you. But by you doing it, you set the example for other people
mm-hmm.
so that they can see what it looks like and they can do it too.
Right.
You know, I had a conversation recently with someone and I mentioned, you know, I don't tip when I meet people, I don't lead with I'm a minister.
Mm-hmm.
For various reasons, namely that people have their own preconceived ideas about God and what a minister should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want them to put me in that category without talking to me first.
Right.
Right? Because some of that I'm gonna blow their minds on. But I'm like, I don't have to tell you I'm a minister if I live my example.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about, well, because I do this, you need to do it too. It's more, I am living my life to the fullest. I'm experiencing these results and outcomes and experiences. And by me doing it, you can see, oh, it's possible. And then you can think, well, if it's possible for her, it's possible for me. Well, what would it take for it to be possible for me? And that, you know, either starts someone on their journey or encourages them along theirs. And I think
mm-hmm.
that's really important. You know, from the Aquarian, we're taught priest is another name for priest is another name for example. And it's just, you know, if we can live the things that we teach, if we can live the things that we're learning, then not only does it make it real for us, it teaches others the same without them necessarily have to enter into a classroom.
Right.
They just see the example and they're like, oh, I love something we see a lot on I see a lot on social media. Lord, I see what you've done for others. You know, like when we see something that like someone's particularly blessed in a particular arena, or they've got something really cool going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we say that kind of jokingly, but what if we could truly take that in for a moment? I see what you do for others. Mm-hmm. Because I see what you can do for others, I know that it's possible. And now the question becomes, how can I make that true for me? Where's mine? How do I do that?
Right.
And I just want to encourage people to ask more questions and ask better questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Another theme that's kind of been popping up as well, kind of in the ether in my world, is teaching people how to treat you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Standing up for yourself,
yeah.
Putting up those boundaries, and at the same time, being able to come from a divine feminine place to allow and be receptive to the changes that you need to make and not beating yourself up for those things. And a lot of people turn out like as people pleasers and not setting, I mean, that was my biggest issue. I started doing some self-reflection a few years back, and I started to realize that that is my main issue. Was, you know, and it's hard when you're empathic and you care about people and you want to help them and you want to, you know, do all these things, but I realized that I was running myself into the ground because I was so worried about what everybody else was thinking or what they needed and all of that stuff. And then I started to make the connection of, well, you know, you cannot continue to do that and help people and guide them if you yourself are thrown off kilter because you're allowing yourself to be walked all over, take advantage of, you know, all of those things. And that was a really hard pill for me to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also a really hard pill for me to swallow in regards to being more of in the feminine aspect and coming from the heart space, taking care of myself, preserving my energy so that I can continue to help others in that way. And it's so strange because, you know, when I was setting those boundaries with clients, it was like it was met with gaslighting and argumentative behavior and
Yeah.
all of those
Because they're
things.
trying
And
to defend their access.
right, right.
You were
And
taking
it's
away
just
something that they were willing to take for granted. The fuck? Yeah.
right, right. I mean, I told one of them, I was like, I'm not your spiritual ATM.
Woo!
This
That's a word. God.
right,
Wow.
and that was hard, you
Yeah.
know, to tell these people like my life doesn't revolve around you. I'm not sitting here waiting on for you to call and jump right on it and all that. A couple years ago, that was me. Like, yeah, sure, I'll you know, stop what I'm doing and, you know, call you or text you back or whatever. And I'm just kind of in this space where I'm seeing it come full circle, where I started to do it, started to take my power back, started to set healthy boundaries with people, and now I'm in this like cleaning house mode where I'm like I'm not putting up with this anymore because it's reduced me to what I'm the state that I'm in now. And I don't think people realize how deep it goes when you're not taking care of yourself, when you're letting people run all over you. I mean, it led me to get to a really low place. And when I just, you know, started coming out of that place, working with it, I started to realize, like, oh my God, every time this person contacts me, I get a pit in my stomach. I don't want to work with them. I know what's going to happen. You know, set boundaries with them previously. They crossed them again. And I'm like, okay, I'm not your spiritual ATM. You know, and that was really hard for me to do, to tell someone, I don't want to work with you anymore.
Yeah.
And
Or the
because
way that you're trying to work with me does not work for me. That's yeah.
right,
That's
right. And that was hard for me. And I was thinking, you know, at first I was like, I shouldn't do this. I should just wait it out and all this. And I'm like, you know what? No. And I feel so much better since I did that, because I don't have to worry about that
right.
anymore. And it made me see that going forward, that I need to put a certain amount of rules and, you know, boundaries up beforehand. And I just had looked back and realized, oh, this whole time I've been doing this with the public, I wasn't setting the correct boundaries, and I'm trying to teach people to set their own boundaries, but I can't do it myself. And I was like, okay, this is a big thing that needs to change so that I can preserve my energy to continue to help those who really need it, that respect my boundaries, listen to what I'm saying, and put these things into practice. That was another big lesson I got, you know, bombed upside the head with was, well, yeah, you're teaching this to people, but you're not doing it yourself. And so I think, you know, the hypocrisy of that really made me see it for the complex layered onion that it was.
Yeah. I will stop you on that,
know,
and just like, hypocrisy is such a heavy word that maybe doesn't apply here.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know any other word to say it.
Yeah, no,
like,
and I'm not
like,
correcting your language and grammar. I just you know, let's be softer in that you were made aware of something that you had been teaching and we're now ready to practice.
Yes.
And I don't think that's hypocrisy. Hypocrisy would be if you were teaching something, realized you didn't practice it, and still kept going as if that didn't matter.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because when you know that you're doing something wrong or that's not in alignment, and you do it anyway, that would be hypocrisy. But if you know, if you recognize it and then you change it, well, that's learning, that's growth, and that's to your and everyone else's benefit.
Right.
And that, you know, that's not a bad thing. I don't know if we have a word for it. We have a word, like, you know, we have forgiveness, but that's
Mm-hmm.
what you do afterwards.
Right.
But in that moment when you're making that transition, I don't know if it's not hypocrisy, it's awareness, you know? But it's not even awareness because you're actively changing it, whereas hypocrisy entails, again, you know you're not doing the right thing and you're continuing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness just says, yeah, I'm aware of it, but it has nothing to do with the action. I don't know if we have a word for it,
Yeah.
but there is something that's very beautiful and uplifting about that recognition, and then you
Mm-hmm.
taking the steps to change it. And,
Yeah.
I don't even know if growth is the right word, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
I just yeah, I just wanted you to be kinder to yourself. I wasn't, again, I'm not correcting your
No,
language
no,
there.
no, you're okay. I didn't know how else to describe
Yeah,
it. I
yeah, no,
wasn't
but
being a
that's
flat
because
out hypocrite,
we don't have another
but
word for it.
yeah, it's been a major learning experience for me having to go through all of that and deal with that. And I was telling my husband, I was like, when I first started doing this for the public, I didn't realize that how much I was going to learn, how important it was going to be to
Yeah,
set those boundaries and set them from the beginning. Like, this was all new for me doing it for the public. So
yeah.
I this has been a complete learning experience for me the whole time that I've been,
We never learn as much as when we
helping.
become teachers, right?
Right. And that's what I love about teaching, is that you continue to learn yourself in so many different ways that are so important to your spiritual growth and enlightenment and ascension. And I had I had no idea. But I had to learn it this way. I had to go through those steps to see it from the direction that I needed to see it at.
Mm.
And I'm talking about all our experience, my experience with all this with everybody, is because I know a lot of people go through these exact same things. And we're human just like everyone else, and we go through our own things and learn our lessons. And when these things pop up and you start realizing the things that you need to do for self-preservation, so that you can continue to help people, it's not that you're trying to be an asshole. It's just you're trying to self-preserve so that you can continue to help others in the way, and show up for them in the way that they need you to show up
Yep.
for them and yourself. So it's just an extremely important life lesson that needs to be recognized and dealt with as you're going through your spiritual ascension and journey and enlightenment process. I think that a lot of people, when these hard things come up in their lives, these hard lessons, it takes them a while to work through it. It took me a while to work through mine. It took me 3 years of doing this with the public to learn this valuable lesson of self-preservation and self-care. Taking those breaks when you need to, and I'm not saying cut into your disciplinary action towards your practice, your meditation, all that stuff. I'm not saying pull completely away from that. But if you need to just take a step back, do it. And that was really hard for me because I'm extremely self-disciplined. I set challenges for myself all the time. I'm going to do
Yeah.
this, this, and this. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes into my ritual practice because I'm a ritual magician. So you can't skip days. You can't, there's like rules when it comes to that stuff. But I realized that I kind of needed to take a step back from all of that because I was getting so overstimulated by everything that was going on that it started to look like more like a chore. And when your practice looks like chores, not good. Right? So taking that step back, taking those breaks when you need to take care of yourself and show yourself some gratitude and love and all of those things. It's kind of like, in ritual magic, the only time you're not supposed to do your rituals is if you're sick, right? And so I was thinking to myself, okay, because you're supposed to do this stuff daily. twice a day if you can. If you want to be all extreme about it, you can do it for hours a day, which I've done before. But kind of not being so hard on yourself and taking a step back from your regimen is completely okay. And I think a lot of people think that if they, miss a couple days of meditation, they ruined it all and then they give up. And
No.
and that's the last thing that they need to be doing, right? It's like get back on the horse, as soon as you're able to. But it's like some people don't think they can have a permission slip to kind of take a step back and work through the things that they need to work through. And it's definitely been hard for me to kind of get off of that whole train of thought. But I'm making the exception because of everything that I've been through has been very difficult. And I have to preserve my energy because I know that something, big is about to happen, that everything's going to come into fruition that I've been working on. And I've got to be ready for that, because if I'm drained and burnt out and I've got leeches and ticks all over me, I'm not going to be able to appreciate it in the way that I need to, because I've worked so hard to get to where I am. Right. So I just want to talk about this for people because, everybody goes through this, and let them know that, even us, we still have the same, the same things, the path that we're on.
Yeah, we're still human.
We're still human. We still go through the exact same things you do. I was joking with one of my clients that I mentor twice a week, and I was telling him, it's funny, us people, practitioners, we always joke when they say, oh, well, the teacher needs a teacher, or the mentor needs a mentor. And that's absolutely true. It's just like a lot of therapists will have their own therapists.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's the same kind of thing. And we kind of joke and laugh about it and all that. But when I realized that a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I need a mentor. I need someone that I can talk to about this that will help me, because we kind of get ourselves, with these blinders on of, oh, we know this stuff, we don't need help, we don't need anybody to talk to. And that was me. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need, help or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, duh, dummy. Of course you do. You need support just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got into a point where I wasn't asking for help or venting or anything, and it kind of contributed to such the low place that I had been in for a while. And so I started seeking, and talking with people and asking them and stuff like that. And I feel like you and I are that way. Mm-hmm. That I could kind of vent to you a little bit and you understand where I'm coming from on, the certain level. So don't be afraid
it's helpful to have somebody with a background, to so that you don't have to explain and give all the definitions.
Yeah, because that's exhausting.
Yeah, and then if they've been on a similar path, and they'll have some experience, or in our case, we see so many people dealing with things, so we can draw from the experience of others as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's why therapists have therapists, and it makes sense that we would have. Well, it's why healers need healers and teachers need teachers.
Yes.
I don't think, and we're always going to be the forever student.
Yes.
And we're the forever student in a number of different ways, whether that's we're learning from our students, or we're just being aware of the things that are happening to us and we're trying to learn from that. It's just, we kind of move in and out, I think, between the teacher and the student, and that's normal, and I think we need that. So
yeah, I think it's important. I think it's really important to seek guidance when you need it, and not be let your pride get in the way a little bit, which I was guilty of. Completely guilty of recently, and then I realized, I need support as well, especially when you're going through a lot,
Yes, absolutely.
you know.
Well, that sounds like a good note to leave us on.
Yeah.
Leave room for next time.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. So thank you guys for sticking around. If you stuck around, I hope our banter has helped you see some things in a different light, and let you guys know that you're not alone, that we're all out here experiencing all these energetic changes and shifts and everything. And it's going to be all right. Things will work out.
Yes,
Just
indeed.
because they're not working out in the way you think they are, it's hard to see the forest for the trees when you're in the middle of it.
Yep.
When you take time and look back, you're like, okay, this is all happening for a reason, and I need to just let go and accept.
Yeah.
And go into flow. So, Kesha, tell everybody one more time where they can find you and how they can get a hold of you for your services.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram at Textarot and at Wealth of Myself. Same handles for Facebook. You can DM for readings, and I will be glad to be of service.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for coming on. I absolutely love our talks. And
Oh man, this is a highlight of my calendar.
Yeah,
I feel the same way. So cool when I tell people, no, I can't do that. I'm filming a podcast. No, I've got my podcast. Yeah. You can't tell me I'm not Esther Perel, right? You can't tell me that, this isn't Diary of a CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love it, and I like how aligned we are in a lot of things, and I really enjoy these talks. So thank you again for coming on, guys. We're going to be doing this again. If you haven't seen the other two, please check those out. If you guys can hear the echo when I drop this, I apologize. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my audio. But anyway, I'll put Kesha's links in the video description. I'll put all of my links if you guys want to get a hold of me. I'm going to start doing a lot more work online, seeing clients online and everything. So you guys are probably going to see me talk more about that in the coming months ahead. I'm going to start doing a lot more online. So you guys get a hold of me if you wish to have any of my services. I'm at some point going to start doing my classes via Zoom. So that I could have, reach more people in case, you're not local and you can't come in and see me. So big changes coming, you guys, a lot of new things that I'm working on. Just kind of stay tuned. And thank you guys for sticking around. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate it. Please subscribe to Kesha's channel. I'll have all those links down in the description below. Let's support her and get her some subscribers and followers. And once again, I will see you guys
Let's get that
later.
message out, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you guys, and thank you for your support with my channel. I can't thank my subscribers and followers and supporters enough. You guys are my world, and I appreciate you guys so much. So,
absolutely.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next time. All right, later.